Imagine a poor child who barely had enough food to eat and spent part of his childhood in shelters and institutions for the needy, only to grow up and become the most famous man on earth. A child who experienced hunger and homelessness, watched his mother break down before his eyes, yet refused to surrender to his circumstances. Instead, he transformed his suffering into laughter that brought joy to millions around the world. That child was Charlie Chaplin, the man who changed the history of cinema forever. With a tiny mustache, a simple cane, and worn-out clothes, he created a character that became a universal symbol of hope and resilience. But behind the smile that the world came to love was a story filled with poverty, pain, success, and political and personal struggles. So how did Charlie Chaplin rise from the impoverished streets of London to become a global icon? And what were the secrets, challenges, and defining moments that shaped the legend of silent cinema? This is the story we're about to discover. But before the story begins, subscribe, leave a like, and join the Whitebeard Stories journey. Now, let the story begin. Charlie Chaplin is remembered as one of the greatest entertainers in the history of cinema. His life was a remarkable journey from extreme poverty and hardship to worldwide fame and artistic immortality. Through his unforgettable character, the Tramp, Chaplin brought laughter, compassion, and social awareness to millions of people around the world. His story is not only the story of a successful actor, but also the story of determination, creativity, resilience, and the power of art to overcome adversity. Early life and childhood struggles. Charles Spencer Chaplin was born on April 16, 1889, in London, England. His parents, Charles Chaplin Sr. and Hannah Chaplin, were both performers in music halls, a popular form of entertainment at the time. Although his parents were talented entertainers, their lives were unstable, and young Charlie experienced a difficult childhood. When Charlie was very young, his parents separated. His father struggled with alcoholism and was largely absent from his life. His mother suffered from health problems and eventually developed mental illness, making it difficult for her to care for Charlie and his half-brother Sidney. As a result, Charlie and Sidney spent periods of their childhood in workhouses and institutions for poor children. Life was extremely difficult. They often lacked food, proper clothing, and a stable home. These experiences left a deep impression on Charlie, and later influenced many of his films, which frequently portrayed the struggles of poor and marginalized people. One of the most famous stories from Chaplin's childhood occurred when he was only 5 years old. His mother was performing on stage when her voice suddenly failed. The audience became restless, and the young Charlie was sent onto the stage to entertain them. He sang and performed so successfully that the audience applauded enthusiastically. This unexpected moment marked the beginning of his lifelong connection with performing. Discovering the world of performance. Despite the hardships of his childhood, Chaplin showed extraordinary talent at a young age. He joined a children's dancing group and later became involved in theatrical productions. Performing offered him not only an escape from poverty, but also an opportunity to develop his artistic skills. As a teenager, he worked in various stage productions and gained valuable experience. One of his important early roles was in a play called Sherlock Holmes, where he demonstrated his ability to entertain audiences through both comedy and dramatic acting. Chaplin's natural talent for physical comedy quickly became apparent. Unlike many performers who relied heavily on dialogue, Chaplin possessed a unique ability to communicate emotions through movement, facial expressions, and gestures. This skill would later become the foundation of his success in silent films, joining Fred Carno's comedy troupe. A major turning point in Chaplin's career came when he joined the famous comedy company run by Fred Carno. Carno's troupe specialized in physical comedy and toured extensively throughout Britain and other countries. Chaplin quickly became one of the troupe's standout performers. His exceptional timing, expressive face, and innovative comedic techniques impressed both audiences and fellow actors. In 1910 and again in 1912, Chaplin traveled with the troupe to the United States. These tours exposed him to American entertainment and introduced him to influential figures in the growing film industry. During one of these tours, film producer Mack Sennett noticed Chaplin's talent and offered him a contract with Keystone Studios. This opportunity would change the course of his life forever. The beginning of a film career. In 1914, Chaplin made his film debut with Keystone Studios. At the time, the film industry was still in its infancy, and silent movies dominated the screen. Shortly after joining Keystone, Chaplin created the character that would become one of the most recognizable figures in cinematic history, the Tramp. The Tramp wore baggy trousers, a tight jacket, oversized shoes, a bowler hat, and carried a small cane. He also sported a distinctive mustache. Despite his shabby appearance, the Tramp possessed dignity, kindness, optimism, and resilience. Audiences immediately connected with the character. The Tramp represented ordinary people struggling against difficult circumstances while maintaining hope and humor. Chaplin's popularity grew rapidly. He soon gained creative control over his films and began directing his own projects. This independence allowed him to develop his unique artistic vision, rising to international fame. Throughout the 1910s, Chaplin became one of the biggest stars in the world. His films were watched by millions of people across different countries and cultures. Unlike spoken language, physical comedy transcended linguistic barriers. People from diverse backgrounds could understand and enjoy Chaplin's performances. Some of his most successful early films included The Tramp, The Vagabond, and Easy Street. These works combined humor with emotional depth, a combination that became a hallmark of Chaplin's style. His films often featured themes of poverty, inequality, love, friendship, and human dignity. While audiences laughed at his comedic situations, they were also moved by the humanity of his characters. By the end of the decade, Chaplin had become one of the highest-paid entertainers in the world. Founding United Artists. In 1919, Chaplin joined forces with fellow film stars Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, along with director D.W. Griffith, to establish United Artists. The creation of United Artists was revolutionary. At a time when major studios controlled most aspects of filmmaking, the company gave artists greater creative freedom and ownership of their work. This decision demonstrated Chaplin's determination to maintain artistic independence. Rather than allowing studios to dictate his projects, he wanted complete control over the stories he told and the way they were presented. The company became an important milestone in the history of cinema and influenced future generations of filmmakers. Masterpieces of silent cinema. The 1920s were among the most productive and successful years of Chaplin's career. During this period, he created several masterpieces that remain as celebrated today. One of the most beloved was The Kid, 1921, which told the touching story of the tramp caring for an abandoned child. The film combined comedy with heartfelt emotion and reflected Chaplin's own difficult childhood experiences. Another major success was The Gold Rush, 1925. Set during the Klondike Gold Rush, the film featured some of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, including Chaplin eating a shoe and performing the famous Dance of the Rolls. In 1928, Chaplin released The Circus, another critically acclaimed film that showcased his extraordinary physical comedy skills. These films solidified his reputation as not only a comedian, but also a gifted storyteller and filmmaker. Adapting to a changing industry, the late 1920s brought a major technological change to cinema, the arrival of sound films, often called talkies. Many silent film stars struggled to adapt to this new era. However, Chaplin believed that the tramp's universal appeal depended on silence. He feared that giving the character a voice might diminish his connection with global audiences. As a result, he continued making largely silent films even as sound became the industry standard. In 1931, he released City Lights, a film that remains one of his greatest achievements. The story follows the tramp's efforts to help a blind flower girl. The film's ending is widely regarded as one of the most moving moments in cinematic history. Despite being released during the sound era, City Lights was a tremendous success. Modern times and social commentary. In 1936, Chaplin released Modern Times, another masterpiece. The film explored the impact of industrialization and modern technology on workers. Through comedy, Chaplin addressed serious issues such as unemployment, economic hardship, and the dehumanizing effects of factory work. One memorable scene shows the tramp being swallowed by giant factory machinery, symbolizing the pressures faced by ordinary workers. The film resonated strongly with audiences during the Great Depression and demonstrated Chaplin's ability to combine entertainment with social criticism. Modern Times marked the last major appearance of the tramp character. The Great Dictator. Perhaps Chaplin's boldest and most significant work was The Great Dictator, released in 1940. At a time when many people were hesitant to criticize Nazi Germany openly, Chaplin created a satirical film mocking Adolf Hitler and fascism. The film was both courageous and controversial. Chaplin played two roles, a Jewish barber and a dictator resembling Hitler. The movie concluded with a powerful speech advocating peace, freedom, democracy, and human compassion. This speech remains one of the most famous moments in film history and demonstrated Chaplin's willingness to use his platform to address important global issues. Personal life and challenges. Although Chaplin achieved extraordinary professional success, his personal life was often complicated. He married several times and faced intense media scrutiny. Some of his relationships generated controversy and public criticism. Additionally, Chaplin's political views attracted attention during the Cold War era. His support for social causes and criticism of inequality led some people to accuse him of having communist sympathies. These accusations became increasingly serious during the 1940s and early 1950s. Exile from the United States. One of the most dramatic moments in Chaplin's life occurred in 1952. While traveling to Europe, he learned that U.S. authorities had revoked his re-entry permit. Facing political controversy and public hostility, Chaplin decided not to return permanently to the United States. Instead, he settled in Switzerland with his wife, Una O'Neill, and their children. Although this period was emotionally difficult, Chaplin continued to work and create films. His experience of exile reflected a recurring theme in his life: perseverance in the face of adversity. Later, films and continued creativity. Even after leaving the United States, Chaplin remained artistically active. He directed films such as A King in New York, 1957, which satirized political paranoia and media culture. In 1967, he released A Countess from Hong Kong, featuring major stars Marlon Brando and Sophia Loren. Although these later films did not achieve the same level of success as his earlier masterpieces, they demonstrated his enduring commitment to filmmaking and artistic expression. Recognition and return. Over time, public attitudes toward Chaplin changed. Many people came to recognize the immense contributions he had made to cinema and culture. In 1972, Chaplin returned to the United States for the first time in 2 decades to receive an Honorary Academy Award. The audience gave him a standing ovation lasting several minutes, one of the longest in Academy Awards history. This emotional moment symbolized reconciliation and acknowledgement of his extraordinary achievements. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him, and he became Sir Charles Chaplin. This honor recognized his lasting influence on the arts and his contributions to global culture. Final years and death. Chaplin spent his final years in Switzerland, surrounded by his family. Although advancing age limited his activities, he remained an admired figure around the world. On December 25, 1977, Charlie Chaplin passed away peacefully at the age of 88. His death marked the end of an era, but his influence continues to endure. Legacy and lasting influence. Charlie Chaplin's legacy extends far beyond comedy. He transformed filmmaking through his creativity, innovation, and emotional storytelling. His work demonstrated that cinema could entertain audiences while also addressing important social and human issues. The Tramp remains one of the most iconic characters ever created. Through this character, Chaplin gave a voice to the poor, the lonely, and the forgotten. His films continue to be studied, admired, and enjoyed by new generations. Directors, actors, and comedians around the world cite him as a major influence. More importantly, Chaplin's life story serves as an inspiration. He rose from poverty, endured personal and political challenges, and used his talent to bring joy and hope to millions. His journey proves that determination, imagination, and compassion can overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Today, more than a century after he first appeared on screen, Charlie Chaplin remains a symbol of artistic excellence, human resilience, and the universal language of laughter. His story is not merely the story of a film star. It is the story of a man who transformed hardship into creativity and left an unforgettable mark on the history of humanity. Every story leaves a mark, but some marks never fade. If you enjoyed tonight's story, subscribe, leave a like, and return for the next tale hidden in the shadows. Until next time, keep the lantern lit